Walking. Something we always do in video games but never take for granted. It gives you freedom to move fast and jump far, but in this video I will be challenging myself to beat Half-Life 2 while only being in the crouch stance. To start off, let's make some rules. 1. Your only way of movement must be performed while crouching. 2. You may not stand up to do a crouch jump. You can only jump while in the crouch state. 3. You can use objects to your advantage. With that out of the way, let's get straight into the challenge.
Rise and shine, Mr. Freeman.
So we start off with the challenge in the wonderful suburbs of City 17. We're about as tall as a child and we crouch slower than a man on a wheelchair. The first part of the game was just like a normal playthrough, except your character is just slower and he can't jump as high.
Pile up some stuff to get through that window and keep going till you're in the plaza.
That might seem unproblematic, but it starts to show just on the first minutes of the game. I couldn't even get past the first window of the level. Gordon Freeman just doesn't jump high enough when you're crouched. I had to take advantage of Rule 3. You can use props to your advantage. I needed to stack objects in the room to make a stairway and get across. It sounded simple, but it was much harder than you think.
Let us consider the fact that for the first time ever, as a species, immortality is in our reach.
As we enter the streets of the suburbs, we find a new obstacle. I needed to get on top of the garbage bin while only jumping about 3 inches high. I simply stacked some objects and made it up top. Next is the apartments. Now what you're about to see is the hardest part so far in the challenge. In this section, you need to outrun the combine and get to the roof. But there's only one problem. Your character can't run. I kept trying and trying, but I always kept dying because I was just too slow. I tried picking up objects and using them as a shield. I tried blocking the combine with objects, but nothing seemed to work. I tried many times, then eventually I figured out that the combine can boost you with their stun sticks. This was huge. My strategy was to get boosted all the way down the pathway and get to the checkpoint. Finally, this happened.
Head for the roof. There's no time to lose.
Here they come!
Run for your life. Double protection.
By all means, identification check in progress. Assemble in your destination.
Now that that's out of the way, the rest of the first mission was pretty easy, other than some tricky jumps and object placing. Whoa! I did it! Let's go! Now let's move on to the airboat levels. They were pretty easy because I didn't need to interact with the ground for most of the time. But when I finally got off the boat, I figured out something. When you enter the boat while crouching, the game thinks you're still in a crouch position, so it saves your status. And then when you leave the boat while holding the crouch key, you are still crouched, but you move as fast if you were walking. You also get one large jump before you get out of the glitched position. This was nice. I got to move around parts of the level quickly while still being crouched. The rest of the airboat levels were fairly easy. I didn't need to touch the ground much, and if I did, I used a new trick I learned.
If you really want to. It's designed for handling hazardous materials, but we mainly use it for heavy lifting. Give it a try.
Now that we have the gravity gun, we can grab objects from farther distances. This is a big deal because without objects, this challenge would be impossible. Next is Ravenholm. This part of the game was surprisingly easy. The zombies didn't overwhelm me and there were a few far jumps, but all I had to do was stack some objects or place this table in front of me as a bridge to cross. Another way of movement besides placing objects is using explosives to launch yourself, like this. Now that Ravenholm is done, we can move on to the mines. The mines were pretty easy except this one part. I dig out on top of the wooden scaffolding, but I couldn't jump as high. As usual, I decided to get some objects around me. But there was a problem. The only objects in the mines were barrels, so I had to think of something else. My first strategy was to get the headcrabs to give me the little extra boost and push me over. That didn't seem to work, but I got close. My other strategy was to get one of the hazardous barrels and blast my way over, and that seemed to work. Now that we exited the mines, we can move on. This next part only had one tricky situation. I killed the first sniper easily with a grenade, but the second sniper was frustrating. Once again, I was just too slow to get out of the way. I thought using a wooden crate to take the bullet from me would do the trick, but it penetrated through. Next, I tried using the same strategy that I used in the caves, using the explosive barrel to launch myself into cover. Now that we have a vehicle, this section was similar to the airboat levels. There were no jumps, just open spaces. But the bridge section was a bit harder than I expected. There were some tricky gaps to cross, but luckily I could use the same trick as the airboat where I'm crouched, but I move faster. Further into the run, I started to figure out the use of explosives. I could leap to far places and complete hard jumps by simply blowing myself up and creating speed from the blast. But anyway, let's get on to the Antlion Guardian boss fight. It was actually pretty easy. The Guardian and the Antlions do terrible damage and I just blasted them away with my shotgun. With our newfound bug bait, we can now control the Antlions. Since I move really slow, the Antlions were actually pretty annoying, but it's nice to have them on my side now. After acquiring the Pteropods, I accidentally figured out that you can do a bunny hop while crouching. This was such a relief because now I can actually move through the levels at a decent speed. Also, I can make farther jumps. Wait, play that back again? Yeah, you saw it. After going back and editing this, the Antlion actually blocked me from getting across the gap. Using our brand new game-changing knowledge, we stormed Nova Prospect with our new antlion friends. As expected, I had no trouble with Nova Prospect. Nova Prospect is only tight corridors and stairways. Everything was easy aside from the usual object placing. As we progressed to the end of the game, it was faster and easier to maneuver around the levels with all the things I've learned, like bunny hopping and using explosives. I got past City 17 very easily. Like I said, I got past City 17 very easily. All of that is true except one part. In the Combine Center, there's a secured place that if you touch the sensors, that the turrets will pop out and you will get shredded. In a normal playthrough, you would have to parkour and jump your way around them, but our character can't jump farther than 2 inches. So I had to use my grenade launcher and grenades to get past. While doing that, I ran into a problem. I just couldn't get enough height to vault past the sensors. I kept going at it, but it didn't go as planned. I kept trying new routes to maneuver the sensors, and finally I found this one. I felt really dumb after this.
I'll be damned. I think he wants you to go through, Gordon. You'd better hurry. And if you see Dr. Breen, tell him I said.
This is it, the final stretch. As we enter the massive citadel, I thought to myself, I can do this. I've come so far. This part really worried me. I had to vault over this tiny railing, but as usual, I couldn't jump high enough. I couldn't use explosives because all my weapons were taken away and the only thing I had was the upgraded gravity gun. I thought that this challenge was impossible now, but I thought of something. There were no blatant objects to help me cross this railing except the one I remembered. You can take off the control panel off the monitors that are in the citadel. I used those and thankfully got over. I actually ran into the same problem again where I couldn't jump high enough, but I luckily had access to the same object.
time, Dr. Freeman? Is it really that